Greetings, this is Fred in Alaska. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you can hear me with the noise of the four-wheeler. I got the mic as close to my mouth as I can get without the little fuzzy getting in there. I want to thank you for joining me today, and well, here I'll give you a little 360 of exactly where we are. Let me shut this noisy pig down here. Alright, now that should be a little better. Blah 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 blah. Alright, we've been here before. We're in the beautiful Knik River Valley. Knik Glacier. And surrounded by a target-rich environment for a camera. We're heading to the glacier there. We're not far away. I want to thank you guys for joining me again. It's been a minute, but, you know, life is life. Shit happens, and got to tend to it. And I got to say, it is a beautiful day. I mean, beautiful. I mean, words can't describe it, and the camera does it no justice. But we're going to get on down over there, and I'm going to catch up with you guys down the trail a little bit here. So hang in there. Hey, greetings. This is Fred again. I just wanted to show you the fall colors are already hitting, at least where I'm at here in the Knik River Valley. It's absolutely a beautiful place. We're almost to the glacier, but people are ripping around. I turned the camera because I don't have their consent, but you can see the glacier back behind the trees there. But if you look over here, it is it's on its way. And the seasons are short, man. It gets real fast around here. But we will get over to the glacier. I just wanted to stop and show you. It ain't far away. It's in the low 60s right now, but that's irrelevant. It could be freezing tonight or snowing here in a few hours. But man, Alaska, wait till we get over here. You'll be able to see off to this valley around the corner here, and then back up over there. Hopefully, I don't know how close we'll be able to get to the glacier just yet, but bear with me and we'll see what it is. All right, catch you soon. Well, we're not too much further away from it. It's hard to see on camera. There's a little plane buzzing over there, and another one flew in the valley over here, so hang on. Here's a little better example of the colors changing here. The Polaris might get a little loud, but I'll keep the mic as close as I can to my mouth so you can hear me. Just kidding. I'll try to keep it under control. Hold on, let me fix this dang little mic. Hold on. Hopefully that's a little better. Oh, yeah, under 16, can't ride. All right. Hopefully, I'm able to be heard. I will boost the sound in editing, but we'll see. Hopefully I'm heard. It looks like it's registering, but that doesn't mean it's not all the 850 high output making the noise. Camera perspective and everything gives it no justice to the actual beauty. I'm surrounded by not trying to bore everyone to death by just ride along here without getting to the encounters I'm going to share. Be aware, some gut-wrenching stuff, so just another warning. It involves, you know, pets, and as we all know, pets are family members. They might as well be your kids. So just, you know, if you're too sensitive to that kind of stuff, then yeah, I don't know if you want to listen much longer, but I'll give it another warning when I get to the encounter. I just couldn't come all the way out here and not share what I'm seeing with y'all. I've seen a lot of people on the trail today, so there might be a bunch of people up over here. I don't know. We'll find out. I gotta tell you, don't just exist in life. You gotta get out and live. I know not everyone has the means to do what I'm doing right now, or the availability to get out to this kind of scenery. But I mean, in general, don't sell yourself short, because remember, there ain't no Brinks trucks or U-Hauls following a hearse. You can't take that bullshit with you. Not surprisingly, a little more chilly the closer we get to this huge ice chunk. Man, I don't know if I mentioned it, but I love Alaska. I couldn't live anywhere else. Wow, there's a serious temperature change when you come around that little corner there. Man, this is the same glacier I filmed at when I said it's, what is it? Pure Uncut Alaska. Nick Glacier. Ooh, big chunk of ice. Ooh. Trail's a little rough here. Oh, goodness. Oh man, I hope those colors are picking up on camera. This is just... Hold on, I'm getting to a better little spot. I'll stop this noisy ass four-wheeler. Whoa, Bessie. Alright, let's kill that noisy pig. Let's go take a look here. Again, thanks for joining me. It's good to see you. Oh, goodness. My goodness. You can't beat that with a broken stick, man. Wow. Welcome to Alaska. Holy shit. Got the beautiful wildflowers here. I'll get a little closer. Oh. My. There's not enough adjectives. Glacier continues back that way. Back up over here. I'm just not sure if those blues are coming through on the camera. There's a little shelf that comes down, and right underneath is just unreal. And the perspective doesn't it doesn't give the true size and grandeur of this, because those chunks of ice, that bigger one there and these ones over here, are massive. Imagine a 3-story apartment building. The sunlight's kind of hitting through little spires over there with the blue, but again, I don't know if the camera's capable of really capturing that. Thanks for joining me today. adventure is to be had. I'm going to catch up with you guys down the trail a little further, and we'll get to that encounter. And man, goodness. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I love Alaska. And those are contrails, not chemtrails. If you believe that, I have some oceanfront property in Idaho for sale, real cheap. And depending when I leave here, maybe I'll take you guys up this valley a little ways, depending on how many people are there. Because if there ain't many people, I won't go that far. Because this main trail, I don't mind being out here by myself because so many people are in and out of here. But and again, thanks for joining me. We'll catch you soon. So, I just want to give you guys perspective. The glacier's obviously right back over there. I was filming, that would be due south. We're heading due north this way. Where I parked is to the west. I just want to give you guys a little 360 of where I am now. This is that little valley I was telling you about. I believe this is Metal Creek or something like that. So let's see how much further we can go. I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but I just love Alaska. But I don't see anything current. Water is moving faster than it looks. And I don't want to go for that kind of ride. So we'll just call it good here unless oh, wait. Oh, there we go. Hold on. I found a good spot, yeah. Oh, right there. Still pretty swift, but no. I misread it. You see, it gets a little deeper. This is good. We'll call it good here. Hold on 1 second. I gotta. All right. Oh, clean off the lens. Goodness, man. So thanks for joining me. There's a view out. Yeah, I got water in my boot. I forgot to fold them back up before crossing in the water again. Actually, I see tracks. I think straight up this way I can get through there. I don't know. Hold on, let me pull these boots up and I'll go test how deep it actually is. I'm gonna try not to get caught up staring at these rocks because there's a bunch of different varieties and can easily get lost in time just checking them out. Oh, hey, look at this one. Nice vein going through there. It looks like quartz or something. All right, let's see here. If it's shallow enough for my boots. Oh yeah, I think we can get across that. Go over here, cut on up. I vote yes, because I want to see what's over there. That's only downfall of having adventure in your blood. You know, like, we gotta go, we gotta make it over there. We gotta make it around over there. but I'm alone right now, so, and I'm not necessarily in a place where I can call 911 for help. No worries though, I got a pet honey badger that's very protective, so. All right, I will, I'll strap you guys at handlebars. Hold on. We'll do it together. Teamwork makes the dream work, right? I got my boot up this time. Hopefully I don't swamp it. All right, hang on. If it starts getting into real deep water, just hold your breath until we get through. I don't have a snorkel kit, but I got enough ponies to hopefully power through. I'm joking, of course. I wouldn't risk it if I didn't have the power to fight against that. So, alrighty, we're gonna go straight there. I'm taking bets on if we make it. I vote we do, but who knows? All right, I ain't scared. Yeehaw! Damn! Well, that got a little squirrely. Yeah. All right, hang on. So, full disclosure, I've never been up in this little canyon. So it's a first for all of us together. And you're welcome. Oh, let me make sure the camera's pointing at a good angle here. Gotta be conscientious of the viewer. I'm too busy focusing on not swamping out. It's a bit of a walk back to the parking lot. Oh, there's tracks here. So I will follow them. Oh, it's angled a little high there. I'm getting all picky. Sorry, y'all. I ain't trying to bore you guys with this. Don't worry, the encounter videos, it's still coming. But I would feel, I'd just feel bad if I didn't share the view and give you guys a little taste of well, where I live and what I do. Oh wow. The camera doesn't do the grandeur any justice at all. It's actually shameful. Oh goodness, that's a pretty deep channel here, so this might be at the end of the road. But that's okay. Ugh. That is just fine. Well, all right, let me get you guys off the handlebars there. Thanks for holding on. And again, if any of you are bored, fast forward. Yeah, just, it doesn't do it any justice. Goodness gracious, clean off your camera lens. Oh, I'd say that cliff up here, about at least a $120, 120 feet above me. And then we got this side, about the same. Man. I couldn't live anywhere else. Let's see here. Oh, there's my ugly mug. All right. Man, you know, there's something to be said about the energy you feel here in Alaska, it's different. Anyone who's been here knows exactly what I'm talking about. There's a little black spot right up on the little ledge up there. I wonder if that's a small cave or a little dark for a shadow. Holler if you guys see a bear trying to get me, just let me know. And I'll have to tend to it. Man, oh man. This water is just, it's like a gray chocolate milk, all sorts of silt and who knows what. Man, I wish I would have brought my chest waders. I'd risk it. Not really. There's a difference between adventure and risk versus reckless, and I'm just not about that. Goodness, man. Friggin' ass is wet going through that shit. I hope y'all appreciate it. It's a sacrifice. Yeah, I'm really suffering bringing you this footage. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. You know, there's a couple times I found places similar to this. You got the vegetation going up this crevice, and you'd think, oh, the vegetation, you climb up there. Bullshit. Bullshit. It don't work like that. Trust me, I've tried, and I'm able, just not with that shit. I like this is kind of like a beach combing, but different. It's glacial silt combing. Oh, hey, there's a helicopter. What up, dude? Let's let the tourists know they're number one. All right. I'm just joking. I'm not anti-tourist. Trying to get a little shade over here so you can get a better look at this one here. Oh, wow, that's unique. Oh, hey, there's another. Oh, wait. I think that's state troopers. I've been here the whole time. Oh, look at that. I think I'll auction that. That's pretty unique, huh? Oh, shit, let me stop doing that, because then I'll be here all day just picking up weird rocks, and I'll weigh a ton when I get back. Ooh, it's a little deep. I was trying to get you guys a little, here I put my hand to get a little more shade, just to kind of give you a view. And it's dark as shit up in them trees. Man. Alright. I'm wasting battery, but I just had to share with you guys. Email me if you want to bid on the rock. I hope you know I'm joking, of course. Man, they're just all in through here. Yeah, any rock hounds, man, this is the spot. Oh, here's another unique one. Look at that. All day. They're stacked everywhere here. Got a little rust in there. There's iron deposits. If I find a gold nugget, I'm just gonna lie and say it's fool's gold. All right, I'll quit babbling. But I am saving this rock. This one's pretty cool. Door stop or something. Mount it to the end of a stick and use it like a primitive club. You gotta keep your squatch bait in line. Can't let them have ideas and thoughts. They, don't need any contention in the ranks. And of course I'm joking, but man. Goodness. All right, I'll quit wasting footage. We'll check you guys down the trail. And I'll stop when we get further back out of the way and whatnot and get to the encounter video. Thanks for suffering through this with me. I went through hardship to bring it to you. I hope you appreciate it. It's a struggle. Anyway, we'll catch you down the trail. Those tracks caught my attention here. Hold on a second. Have to take a look at that. Huh. Okay. There's a sorry, bull moose running and it just the way. Anyway, false alarm. Greetings, thanks for joining me. Hope you guys enjoyed that intro footage of Glacier. It's beautiful out here. I'm in a camper. As you can see, it's dark and raining and nothing to see outside right now. Where I was, I don't know, 20, 30 miles out the way. So, again, thanks for joining me. Not dead. Didn't quit making videos, just life happens and you gotta deal with it. I'm just set up here, got my little workstation, so as soon as I'm done here, courtesy of Starlink, I'm gonna get it uploaded, so it'll probably be wee hours of the morning for a lot of people, but it is what it is. So what I wanted to share with you today comes from Joseph and Monty. Now it's been, you know, about 25 years since this incident occurred, and I gotta warn you again, those who are sensitive to you know, animals being injured in any way, I would suggest that you just enjoy that intro footage and stop it here. So Joseph and Monty, they were doing a favor for one of their family members, and the family still has a cabin. So I was asked not to share the exact location, but we'll say it's in the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, and that's a vast area. So I mean, I don't want to burn anyone up or, you know, anything like that. And so what they were doing was basically this it was an old trapping cabin, and it was used sometimes for fishing, but it was a little further away from this particular river, and the salmon returns weren't what they used to be. So it was just kind of like unused, and it was in disrepair, and it needed a new roof. And so Joseph and Monty decided, you know, they heard talk, you know, one of their uncles was going to do it, and got a bunch of supplies out there, and just for whatever reason they didn't know, he just stopped working on it and left. So they're just like, well, okay. And without any context of why their uncle quit, he was just like, all right. So Joseph and Monty decided that it was pretty late in fall. All their other stuff was done, and they had a good, you know, 3 solid weeks to get everything just tip top and, you know, back in working order so people can make use of it, this cabin, because from what they're saying, it was a nice little spot. It was tucked back away from the river. It was in this meadow-like area, you know, and it was just nice. It was a real, you know, beautiful spot to be. So they get out there, and they had to take a skiff up the river. And when they got there, their uncle had transported an old 3-wheeler up there, and the 3-wheeler was operational. They got there, and it was an old Honda, you know, 200. And they fired that up, and it was running. So, oh, settle down, computer. Sorry, Lenovo's
firmware update. Anyway, so they used a three-wheeler to take what supplies they had back over to the cabin. First, they, of course, armed. They take stuff over, and they had 3 dogs with them. These were retired sled dogs. They were, not old, but they were older dogs, been around the village for a long time, whatever. And so they took the 3 dogs, and the dogs just followed them, doing their thing. One of them ran ahead of them, and 2 were just kind of trailing behind, looking around, smelling stuff, whatever. They get up to the cabin, and they notice that the front part, there was a new, basically, gable end on the front that their uncle had started on. And, the roof was nowhere near complete. So the ridge line was halfway, but again, it had been a while since the uncle had been there, and things weren't squared and true, And so they get there, they're kind of looking around, and they weren't checking the area around them as much because it's pretty wide open, a lot of tundra and small brush, willows and stuff. So they weren't overly concerned because the dogs weren't making any kind of like serious racket or anything. And then, dogs weren't doing anything squirrely, so they were just focusing on what they're seeing. They go inside, and it was just pretty saturated in there, and so they're like, geesh, they didn't want to get onto the cleaning of the inside without a roof on it. So they decided, we'll just set up our canvas tent, and we will, work out of the tent and get the roof on. Then we'll worry about the inside. So for the first 4 or 5 days, it was from daylight to damn near sundown that they were, plugging away. And they got they got the new roof on in that time. And they laid out the asphalt paper and everything they're doing. And they were trying to figure out a place that we were going to go and cut tundra. Big squares of tundra, and just put the tundra up on top of the asphalt paper and stuff, because they had already heavy-duty visqueen, 10 mil or whatever, visqueen down in the asphalt paper, across the trusses they built. And they were, it was coming along. And so because they had basically, it was dried in, but it wasn't, the full roof wasn't complete because they were going to use the tundra. They had the full roof on there, and so they were doing some of the repairs inside, trying to get all the muck out and just kind of get things in order, because again, it was in disrepair, damn near dilapidated. So, they were just doing all the, I wouldn't say minor, because he said it's pretty involved, but Joseph and Monty, those 3 dogs, they alerted on a porcupine, so they knew the dogs were doing their thing, so they were relaxed per se, because they had loaded weapons ready. And so they had a 30-06 and a 300 Win Mag. Now, they kept them leaned up against the wall wherever they went. If they went outside, they grabbed the rifle, came out with it, had it right nearby. And again, they were counting on these dogs, early alarm system, early warning. So they're doing some work on the outside, and all of a sudden, they're focused on the work and realize that they're tripping over the dogs. They're like, come on, move. Because typically they only got under their feet when it was time to eat. And so, Joseph, he looked at his watch and he's like, what the hell? And he started paying attention to the dog's demeanor. And all 3 of them were like piddling themselves, and they were hunkered down as close to the building, as close to the cabin and them as possible. So him and Monty see the same thing at the same time, and they start looking around. And they couldn't see anything outright. There was nothing tangible to see, why are these dogs acting like, because they never act like that, even with the bear. And so Joseph grabbed the rifle, and Monty automatically grabbed that, his rifle too. And Monty had a 44 Magnum on his hip. And from what Joseph said, he had a 357 on his hip. 6-shot revolvers, And so he goes and stands on top of the 3-wheeler to get a little height and get a better view. And they had a ladder on the back side of the cabin, because they were on the sidewall, and the back side was just around the corner. And so Monty went up the ladder, got a little higher view, and was looking around and wasn't seeing anything. And Monty's rifle, he had a scope. That was a 300 Win Mag. He had a, I think it was a 3x9 or a 9x12, something like that, scope, and he's just scoping the area, just getting a better view. And Joseph had a 30-06 with the open sights, and they weren't seeing anything, and they were looking around. They went the other direction, looking around everywhere, 360, and they're not seeing anything. And by this time, the dogs were gone. They're like, what the hell? So they went looking for the dogs, and they had scurried inside the cabin. Well, 2 went in the cabin, 1 went in the wall tent, the canvas tent. And they're trying to figure out what the hell, because there was nothing tangible. There was no odors, nothing to go by. So they're like, this is weird. It was so weird that they stopped all work for 2 days, trying to figure out why these dogs would not stop cowering and acting weird. So they were so creeped out that they decided to move camp into the cabin. And what they did is, for temporary purposes, because the wood stove in there needed a new stovepipe to go up through the ceiling that they had, the roof that they had not completed yet. So they took the wood stove from the wall tent, a little small portable one, brought it in there, and just made a homemade makeshift hole in the, through the plastic and stuff, cut out a hole, and so they can have heat. Now, this is an incomplete roof. It's not fully structural by any means yet, because there's still some more, they had to put on some more purlins across and some other stuff before they did, the tundra or whatever style they were using. It working carpentry, some of the stuff sounded backwards, but again, everyone does their own thing. So they get all stuff situated in this cabin because of a little more better walls and stuff, and it was getting on in the dark. And the one thing about the cabin door that needed to be fixed was the door was it had just warped over time, and the weather and all that, so it wasn't fully shutting. It would shut, but it wasn't fully sealed, so it was one of the things I had to redo. But at least it shut. It just was warped a little bit, it was kind of tacoed, so it was no big deal. They had the little wood stove, kept it warm in there. And that night when they went to sleep, they ended up hearing way off in the distance this horrendous scream, and they could tell it was a long distance away. He was guessing miles away, but it was loud enough it was like startled them enough to where they grabbed guns, and they were standing there, and they were trying to, like, what the hell. So, and this happened just as they were getting ready to go to bed, so they still had the lantern on. So what they did was they got their flashlights nearby them, put some stuff in front of the door, just as a early warning system or whatever, because the dogs weren't making any freaking noise at all. None. And he said that's unusual, because these retired sled dogs, they're always usually yapping at each other and just being squirrely dogs. And so, it was concerning, to say the least. And so they stacked a bunch of stuff up by the door, and they stayed back by the back corner, and there was basically nothing inside at this point except the wood stove, okay, and some of their tools, to keep out of the weather and stuff, and a few of the building supplies that were left over, some 2x4 and some other stuff, but that was all stacked away neatly. And so when you go in the door, he said the wood stove would have been to the far back corner to the right, and they set up right in the back corner to the left, and they basically sat up leaning against the walls. And he said he woke up after sitting there for so long. He just dozed off from just being exhausted, days of work and all that stuff. So he said he was woken up by, it sounded like a shutter, kind of like banging wood, like something was trying to come in the door. So immediately he opened his eyes, turned on the flashlight, and didn't see anything. By then, Monty's standing, and Joseph is still sitting on the ground. Eesh. Fuck. So, as they're focused on the door, right behind Joseph's head, there was just a horrendous boom, and he felt it in his back, because he wasn't leaning his head back against the wall. He was just leaning just his back of his shoulders, and it startled him. He said it startled him so bad, he leaped so quickly, and it happened so fast. He was damn near had his back to the door at that point, pointing his rifle back. And Monty had just turned around a couple steps and was pointing in that direction. And this thump would randomly every so often, bang on the outside of this place. And so they don't know what to do. They don't want to shoot. They don't have any target at this point, but their concern is this roof isn't complete, and whatever's banging that hard could potentially come through the roof. So, you know, they're looking all over. They felt unsafe, which shit goes without saying, I guess. But so as that's going on, the adrenaline's pumping, and he said it was about 7 to 10 minutes roughly of the random banging, but it was continuous, but it was random. It wasn't like, you know, every second there's a bang here and a bang there, and nothing like that. But there'd be a bang over this side, then a bang over here, and he got the feeling like they're being distracted from something. So he whispered to Monty, "Keep an eye on the door, and I'll pay attention to the sounds." So Monty got off. He was facing the door and just kind of offset to the left, had the rifle ready about, you know, just enough distance back to where he had time to react. This cabin, from what he said, was about 14 feet, 16 feet wide by maybe 20, 24 roughly. So the walls, from what he said, were roughly 7 foot where they topped off. And they were 8 foot originally, he said, but settling over the years or whatever. Anyway, so as Monty's facing the door and Joseph is just kind of following the sounds around when they would happen, he said after about, 7-10 minutes of regularly, banging or whatever, all that noise stopped. And then they were hearing this weird noise. They heard something messing with the tar paper and the plastic at one corner, which was just offset from the door where Monty was standing. So he pointed his rifle up that way. Now it wasn't light. It was dark out, and they were trying to minimize use of light, so they weren't marking where they were in there. They didn't know what was going on. They didn't know if it was some weirdo in the woods going to kill them or anything. Now, they've heard of the hairy man, but it was always in stories about, old days and stuff like that. So it wasn't really something they thought it was a concern. And so when they're hearing this noise from the asphalt paper and stuff, they heard one of the purlins just being pried up from the roof, right? And it was being pushed with so much force that front gable end was they could hear the nails creaking and starting to pull out. So Monty shoots through the corner, just up and out. Not through the wall, but up through to where he could shoot out the plastic and the asphalt paper. And instantly their ears are just ringing hard, and it goes quiet. And Joseph was startled as shit because he wasn't expecting Monty to shoot, but I mean, what else was he going to do? He didn't, wasn't mad at him. He was just startled from it. And so they're kind of walking in a circle back to back. And again, the dogs are just quiet down off to the sides out of the way. And they hear this noise that sounds like the suspension of the three-wheeler. And they're like, oh, shit. What the hell, And all of a sudden, it gets real, real quiet. And again, their ears are ringing. So some of the noises are kind of obscured and they can't fully make it out. But there's activity happening. Well, they hear the collapse of that wall tent, the canvas tent. And it sounds like something's being drug off, so they're assuming it got knocked down and something's dragging it away. So fuck, it's dark, but they don't know what they're dealing with. They didn't want to run out there. And so it's quiet again. They hear the suspension of the old three-wheeler again. And it was like a creaking old suspension, like something was bouncing on it kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, it goes quiet again for a brief moment, and then bam! So the three-wheeler was thrown onto the outside, just where the new joists or the new trusses were on top of the wall. It banged up in there, and it was thrown with such force that the front tire of the three-wheeler was kind of hooked over the wall in between two of the fucking trusses. So now they're really freaked out because a human ain't gonna throw that, and bears don't have thumbs to grip it and throw it like that. So, it was getting hectic. The dogs at this point started just squalling. They weren't howling or growling. It was like they were getting beat, you know, that and they could barely hear themselves talk because the dogs were losing it. And as they were talking, like, what the hell, they had a small generator, a genset that they were using for their skill saw when they were cutting everything, and it was in the wall tent, you know, that was stored out there because it had a small gas leak or whatever, and they didn't want it inside the cabin, you know, breathing the fumes and whatnot. Well, all of a sudden, that thing is thrown at the front door, and it destroyed half of the front door. Like, if they hadn't piled that stuff up, the little generator would have been right in the middle of the floor. But it hit with such force that it stayed outside because of the stuff they had piled up against the door, but it broke the door in half, and the top half just kind of, you know, didn't fully fall away, but it was exposing outside. Pitch black out there. So now they're like, shit. So now they got the flashlights looking out the hole. They don't know what they're gonna basically do. As they're trying to decide, because it's chaotic, you know, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? This is an old style cabin, so it's not a tall door. You know, it's like maybe 5.5, 6 foot. You gotta duck down to go in and out, right? So as they're discussing what to do, the dogs are still squalling, like loud. So they're trying to shut them up, back them up by the wood stove, keep them back, right? And all their ties they had for them, they had, you know, little runners and stuff for them, but it was attached to the wall tent, and they don't know where the hell that is. It's in the freaking dark. So he said when you go out the front door, there's a pretty wide path and grass and tundra and stuff that leads back down towards the river, but then there you got a tree line you got to go through. And then, you know, roughly not quite 100 yards of tree line and, you know, black spruce and stuff, then you get to the near the riverbank, and then you go down a little ways, and that's where their skiff was. So he's sitting there trying to figure out, what are we going to do? Because obviously something is pissed off and like actively attacking the cabin. So as they're sitting there trying to figure out how to keep the dogs from yammering and all this other shit, one of the dogs takes off and basically climbs the pile of stuff on this side, leaps out the broken door, and takes off into the dark. And within seconds, he said it was like everything was happening so quick, so he didn't go 1,000, 2, nothing like that, but he said it was within seconds they heard that dog bark, like done, ended. And they're like, you know, shit, you know. The other two dogs, they stopped squalling, and they just kind of like hunkered down and were just, you know, basically terrified, as low to the ground as they could get. So Monty decides, boom, he just shoots another shot just out into the dark, you know, just to let them know, we're going to shoot. And so Joseph came up beside him. He shot a round out the door. They both had chambered another round. Well, as they chambered the other round, and then they kind of backed up away from the door and then offset from it because they didn't want to be in direct sight of the, you know, the open doorway, because they're a little closer to it. Joseph said, as they were whispering to each other, what the fuck, what are we going to do? Like, what do we do with this? Unfortunately, it threw the dog back in through the door. And the dog was not recognizable as a dog. It was just a furry, bloody, pulpy mess. And so now they got that. They're looking at that kind of in shock, like, holy shit. And so they back up more, and then they go back into the corner where they were, because they have nowhere to go, The freaking three-wheeler's hanging off by his, front tire on the side of the freaking cabin. Door's busted, dog's dead. What the fuck? And so they basically just squatted down and were just sitting there just waiting for something else to happen. And he said he's not sure how much time had passed, but it was between 15, 20 minutes roughly. And again, chaotic mind and terrorized, it could be a little off, a little warped. But he said as they were sitting there being quiet, Monty was not turning the flashlight off from staring out the hole in the door, right? Because that was the last active area of shit going on. They started hearing this weird. He tried to imitate it, but it was kind of like a like a half call, like a or like that, just over and over. And it started, and it was moving around. And what scared them is the walls were roughly 7 foot. They could hear it above. It wasn't coming through the wall. It was coming through the roof, this noise, as this thing moved around. And so when it started, it was just offside of the door. They're facing the door. It's just off to the right where it started and came around, went all the way around. And they decided, they're whispering to each other, when that noise comes to the front, we're going to shoot through through that hole in the door. And as it come around, all of a sudden it went quiet. And then it went dead quiet. Nothing. And so they had 3 different flashlights, right? And the problem is all their spare batteries and shit was in that other canvas tent. Anyway, so they were conserving battery power, so they'd switch between flashlights. And after a few minutes, Monty put on his work gloves, grabbed the carcass of the dog, and flung it back out the door because he just couldn't look at it, right? So once he did that and backed away from the door and was getting the fur and stuff off the gloves, and just took them off and dropped them off the side, and picked up his rifle again and joined Joseph back in that corner. They said within another maybe 30 minutes that wah started again, and it was moving faster, and it just kept going around, faster and faster. And then there's a second one they heard off in the distance making an identical call, but in a different tone, different pitch, and it was coming that direction. And that's when they really started freaking out. Like Joseph said that at this point they were in tears, terrified. They didn't know what the fuck to do. So as this is going on, he said it was a bit chaotic, which, man, I could totally relate to. Shit gets fucking freaked out. But he said as it was going on, the noise was moving so fast that, every time they're trying to time to shoot at the door, through the hole in the door, the timing wasn't right to waste a round. They had limited ammunition on them because the rest of it was out in the canvas tent, Anyway, and they couldn't account for that. They couldn't have ever thought that this shit would be happening to where they would need, 100 rounds of ammo or whatever. But anyway, so they wanted to wait and conserve until they could have an actual target. Because, again, they haven't even seen what's been doing this yet. And he said at the time, he just thought they were monsters, His words were, monsters are real. He kept telling Monty, and monsters are real. And so this goes on for a while. So there's 2 of these things making noises, this wah, wah. And it's like one would be running around here. So it was like synchronized, wah, 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 wah. He said it was the damnedest thing. And they were feeling the impacts in the ground at the same time, but it was so fast. He was like, it was scary fast. And so finally they just decided, okay, we're just gonna, try to time it the best we can and fire a couple rounds out that broken door. And so Monty misfired first, when they were waiting. Boom, he fires a shot. It got quiet, but the running around was still going. And then a brief moment later, it started again, this wah, wah, wah. Just a weird sound. And so, Joseph was elbowing him and saying, using hand, finger signs, 1, 2, 3. And then they, in unison, shot, boom, boom. And a little while later, it didn't stop the running around or anything, but he said within a couple moments, it sounded like they felt and heard them moving away through the brush, right? And he said they felt it more than heard it, because with the rounds going off, their ears were ringing pretty good. And so things calm down and things get dead quiet. Now, as they were calming down, like having a little powwow about what the fuck, you know, it started getting light on the horizon. And so they felt better. Daylight's coming, you know. And so they just sat there quiet, waiting. They were shivering from the shock. They were trembling. He said it wasn't cold in the cabin because it was well heated from that little wood stove and the fresh new roof and stuff outside of the door being a little tacoed originally or whatever. It was holding heat just fine. It's they were just trembling from the fear and the shock. And as they were discussing, you know, well, we're just gonna, you know, we're not gonna unhook that, or maybe we could try. They didn't know how damaged it was, and they weren't trying to hang out and take the three-wheeler down if they could and assess damages and work on it. Yeah, it just, that wasn't in the cards. They did decide they would attempt. You know, one would push the tire from the out, you know, from the inside, you know, up and over, because it was just kind of hooked over like a hanger hook, you know. And the other one would hold the back end and just kind of try to guide it down or whatever. So as they were doing that, once it got light enough and they could look around and see that there was nothing immediately around, that's what they did. And fortunately, it worked out to where when it worked out just right to where they were able to free it, and it landed, kind of tipped over, but it was an old 200. They just flipped it right over, right? Monty flipped it over. And some of the gas spill and all that kind of stuff, but he wiped it up real quick as Joseph came out and was standing guard, and it fired up. They're like, okay, great. So they go look around, and the wall tent had no floor to it. It was just, you know, a wall tent, and then you put rocks down along the edges to keep it from, you know, anything blowing under or whatever. And fortunately, the one bag that had all the extra ammo was still there. There was another survival bag still there, and you know, they grabbed those bags and fired up the wheeler, and they were just about to start taking off, and they noticed tracks in the mud. And so, sorry, got two windows here. Anyway, shit creeps me out. So they saw tracks in the mud and went over to like, what the hell was this? And it was huge. He said it had to have been about 20 to 22 inch track, and it looked just like a human track, just big and wide, and it was deep impression in the mud. And the two dogs that were still remaining, they were petrified to come out, but they weren't going to leave them there considering what happened to the one. So what they did is they got those leads. You know, one was strung up through the brush because they never saw the tent again. It was just gone. Wherever it was drug off to, they didn't go looking for it. It was just gone. And they were able to get the leads. One lead and one, they used a rope and basically leashed them up. And once they were leashed up and they were moving away, the dogs didn't have to be dragged. They just kind of kept up. And the dogs were just petrified the whole time, tails tucked, you know, ass end being dragged, but they were trying to move, you know, so they're trying to like fight the urge to speed, and they also didn't want to strangle the dogs, but they couldn't hold them because Joseph was holding the rifle and Monty was driving. You know, they wanted to be able to protect themselves. So they get through, and when they get over this tree line, okay, it's still early enough in the morning. It's daylight, but the tree line's pitch fucking black still. I mean, the woods are dark. And they stopped, and they're just like, eesh. You know, they had the creeps. They didn't want to go into the dark woods, but the skiff is that way, right? And so Monty goes, just get ready. If we have to, we'll drag the dogs. You know, we got to get through here. And the trail, this kind of just a slight S curve. You know, it wasn't nothing horrible. It wasn't a bunch of roots where they had to slow down. They could keep a pretty decent clip, you know, within reason. But they didn't want to. You know, Monty false started about 5 times because they were still about, you know, 20 yards from the opening of the trail into the woods. And I'm not laughing at him. I totally could understand, like, yeesh, you know, the apprehension. And finally, you know, after the 5 or so false starts, Monty goes, I'm going for real this time, and just started going. And as they went around the first kind of bend in this, the curve of the trail, it curved off to the left, and Monty saw one of these things, watching them just standing there, and Joseph saw it last second, swung the rifle, boom, and fired that shot, right? Hellacious scream. He doesn't think he hit it, but it was like, it was right there. He said it was within 15 feet. And here's the scream, and Monty freaks the fuck out because, it was right there. This huge being was just standing right there, and he hits the throttle. Well, as they were, they had the dogs attached still, basically, right? And this thing grabbed one of them, hellacious noise made, and they just kept going. And the other dog was motivated to run, okay? It was actually... Joseph was trying to hold his rifle. He had chambered another round, but he was using his right hand to keep the line out of wrapping into the tire because the dog was passing them, right? And it was chaos. They got through the tree line, out to the other side, and they're freaking out. So there's a couple little like they're just cut banks, right? One is where they thought the skiff was. So when they got up to the first little area, there's no skiff, and they're freaking the fuck out, right? Because they had jumped off the wheeler, and they're looking around like, oh. And then Monty was like, no, over there. He just saw the part of the outboard, through the grass, the way it was hanging over the edge of the riverbank. So they run over there. The dog jumped right in, and they jumped in, dropped the kicker, fired it up, and got out of there. Again, this is approximately 25 years ago. And my heart rate's going just thinking about it, because being in a situation like that where there's absolutely nothing you can fucking do, like there's nothing. What are you gonna do? Run? You gonna run away? You gonna call someone? Nah, that ain't happening. Monsters are real. I don't care what anyone believes, is irrelevant. Be aware in the woods, and don't take shit for granted. Just be aware. And I want to thank you guys for joining me again. It's been a minute, but life shit happens, and you got to tend to it. Unfortunately, my dad hasn't been in the best of health, so you just got to tend to stuff. It is what it is. Again, thanks for your patience. If anyone's still watching the channel, I get notifications every once in a while, but anyway, irrelevant. Thanks again for joining me, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.